Over the last year, I've become increasingly interested in a question that seems to show up no matter what topic we're exploring. And that is, how do we learn to listen to ourselves? Not our conditioning, not the expectations of other people, not the stories we've inherited, but our actual selves. For many of us, that journey begins in the body. My guest today is Laura Khoudari, author of Lifting Heavy Things, Healing Trauma One Rep at a Time. Laura's work sits at the intersection of trauma, strength training, embodiment, and self-discovery. What I love about her approach is that she challenges the idea that healing only happens through stillness. For some people, healing begins through movement, through learning to feel, through discovering our boundaries, through noticing what we want and what we don't want, and through building the capacity to stay present with ourselves under stress. In this conversation, we explore trauma-informed strength training, nervous system regulation, eating disorder recovery, desire, boundaries, and what it means to develop a genuine relationship with yourself. Whether you're someone who loves the gym, someone who struggles to know what you want, or someone who is learning to trust your body again, I think you'll find something meaningful in this conversation. Here's my discussion with Laura. Welcome to the Spiritually Curious Therapist, where science, spirit, and the self come together in the art of healing. I'm Jody Silverman, psychotherapist, Reiki master, and fellow seeker. Here we explore how presence, compassion, and nervous system wisdom helps us reconnect with the heart, the body, and the soul. Hello, and welcome back to the Spiritually Curious Therapist. Today we have a very special guest, Laura Khoudari. Laura is a trauma-informed wellness expert and author. Her book, Lifting Heavy Things, Healing Trauma One Rep at a Time, has appeared in the New York Times and in NPR's Health Shots. She has presented her work for Somatic Experiencing International, the Clinical Health Psychology Department at St. Mary's Hospital in London, the Breath Network, Reebok, lay males, fitness for all bodies, and community mental health centers, conferences, schools, and fitness studios in the US and Canada. You can learn more about Laura at laurakhoudari.com. Today, Laura is mostly focused on her writing to gain deeper understanding and connection around diet culture, eating disorder, desire, and sexuality. I am so excited for this conversation, Laura. Welcome.
Thank you, Jody. I'm excited too. That was a really nice intro. I
Well,
like
thanks
it.
for.
Give me a high
Yes.
hand.
So, Laura, let's just start with you telling us a little bit about your story. Where did you start and what was your journey to get where you are now?
Yeah, my career path, I recently realized actually when I graduated college, the message was very much, and then you do this and this and you build your career and it's this very linear track. And mine has really mimicked, I would say, emotional growth, which means it's wiggles and it's scary sometimes, but really more recently would be the trauma informed strength training work, which I started doing in 2016. In 2014, I had experienced an acute trauma and subsequently developed PTSD. And it wasn't that long after I had really fallen in love with the sport of weightlifting. And also, remember if I had started powerlifting yet. I think powerlifting came later. But I had never been an athletic kid. I cut gym class, smoking cigarettes in the park, the whole thing. And here I am trying to manage chronic back pain in my late 20s because I want to start a family. And I, over a course of 8 years, fall in love with a strength sport. And I really came into myself. I learned how to take up space in the gym in a way I had never known, right? And I loved it and I wanted it back. I felt like it would be really empowering for me to be able to continue to touch into the strength and the voice and the agency I felt on the weightlifting platform as I was working to do some really deep healing work around this very big personal trauma. And I was finding yoga, trauma informed yoga, which is a wonderful thing for many people. It wasn't accessible for me. It just didn't happen. So I felt this should be a thing. I am the sort of person where if I'm like, oh, there's this thing I want in the world and it's not there, I guess I'm going to make it a thing. And so I became a personal trainer and I studied somatic experiencing and I combined and a couple other like neuropsych modalities and I combined what I was learning through neuropsych and like somatic trauma modalities with exercise science to map them onto each other to develop a way for people who have a really limited capacity for nervous system activation to begin to widen it and practice feeling their feelings, feeling their boundaries, feeling inside their body through strength training. The time was right. I found other people who were doing this work and it became a thing, which was really exciting. And the book was a way, one of the many ways to make it accessible since it's new. It's not just about money, it's about who is even doing this. If there are 5 people doing it, they can't help everybody, even if it's free.
Yeah.
So the book was a way to at least give some people some tools to bring some of it into their own work in the gym when they work out on their own and also across different fitness modalities, not just strength training. So that was that. The book came out. It was wonderful. Came out during COVID. So my book tour, we'll call it, was virtual. And I was meeting with a lot of different people, different groups, and I became really the book because it focuses on how you feel from strength training and also not about any sort of aesthetics at all. It became popular with eating disorder recovery groups. And I started talking in that space. And I do mention in the book a history of disordered eating, but I always thought I had it under control, quote unquote. And I realized that control was not really control, and at best it was tenuous, right? And so I decided to also go into a recovery program myself and finally deal with binge eating disorder, which was something I had been diagnosed with and knew I had. And that pivoted my work along with the fact that there were, by that point, I would say around by 2022, I think, some really reputable programs that were teaching this trauma informed approach to people who are interested in being strength coaches and personal trainers. The thing I set out to do, which was make it a thing in the world, it happened. Right? It did the thing, which was like mind blowing, by the way, and also really disorienting. The book comes out, the goal is met, and it was like, what do I do? There were I had a lot of obligations in my life besides with my family and work that pays the bills and better than this stuff than writing and personal training. And so I stepped back from that and I have been focusing on the writing and what started as just processing for myself, right? As you said in the intro, I write in part to make understand my feelings, to understand theories, to understand concepts. So, but some of those early entries in my journal about eating disorder and recovery, and then what I was starting to see unfold in terms of my realizing desires in, oh, if I can eat Oreos, what else can I have in my life besides food, started to unfold. And those journal entries have eventually morphed into this book that I'm currently working on. So I think I caught you up.
Yeah, that's such an incredible journey. And it just really speaks to how when we are doing the work and we're also creating and we have a vision and that vision is met, then something else opens up,
Sure.
right? And so that vision for you, and I would say, and this is just me, but as I'm listening to you, where you are now is probably always deep down underneath that vision, right? And this journey through strength training and connecting it to emotions was a way of working through and getting to this next step.
100%. I wouldn't have I have been working with a wonderful therapist. I've been in therapy almost my entire life and with a few breaks here and there, but I started at 9. I've been working with an incredible therapist since 2014. And I couldn't bring myself to talk about the food stuff until very recently. And part of that was all the tools. Some of it was processing the big T trauma, but then all the other things. I have just really started talking about that in my regular therapy, these issues around food and desire, because I just didn't have the capacity to handle. I had really big feelings about it, right? And that can be really disorganizing, dysregulating, and it's hard to feel that way. So, how can I feel contained, like a really good container for this it's a lot of emotional turmoil, and to know that's okay, right? I couldn't have done that without doing all that other work first.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about that, just to set the stage in terms of how you see, especially in reflecting back, the strength training giving you capacity to lean into these big emotions.
Sure. So, one of the things I really like to emphasize is that it's a practice, right? Strength training as a practice. It's a practice of staying with the body. We're cultivating interoception, the sense of interoception, feeling what is happening in the body, and also practicing staying with that under stress, right? Because exercise, we tend to think of stress as a bad as opposed to a neutral. Exercise is a stress. It is mimicking a lot of the sensations that can come up with tumultuous feelings inside of your body. And my approach to strength training, and I continue to this day, practicing staying with the body under stress, noticing where my edges are, dialing it back when needed. It takes practice and learning how to trust myself to be with those big sensations. And I did that entirely through strength training because for some people, maybe sitting on a cushion and staying with the breath is a really wonderful way to practice, or something more gentle like the trauma sensitive or trauma informed yoga. That was too passive for someone like me. It felt too still. I moved towards fight, I moved towards aggression. And so to have a place where I feel empowered, I'm moving around while I'm experiencing this stress, it felt safer. And I still move around quite a lot, and I'm strength training, and I did yoga right before this, and I'm doing belly dancing and all of these ways to feel inside my body and continue to move and notice what it feels like inside my body when I'm moving, so that I can also notice what it feels like in my body when I'm still, but inside feels like it's moving. Right.
I think a lot of people can probably relate to, especially right now in
Sure.
this time in the world where we are recording this in April 2026.
Mhm.
And there's a lot happening out there in the world. And I think a lot of us are internalizing that and feeling a lot of movement inside. And I love what you're saying because, and I want to just slow it down
Yeah.
for a moment. Speaking of moving quickly.
I welcome it.
Yeah. And because I think it's really important. A lot of people, when they think about nervous system regulation, they go right to things like, I need to meditate, I need to slow down, I need to be with all of these ideas without actually having a mechanism that feels aligned in order to be able to do that. And there's a lot of, if I just do this, then that,
Yes. So much.
right? Yeah. And so I really love what you said and want to reiterate that any of this work that we do is a practice,
Yeah.
meaning we have to keep coming back to it over and over. No, I want to say that differently. It's not about having to come back to it, right? Choosing to come back to it. And what I often will say to people, especially when it comes to nervous system work, it's like brushing your teeth. You can't brush your teeth for 1 hour once a month. It doesn't work that way, right?
I was like,
We,
would I like that better? At first, I thought I would. I was like, no, I would not.
if it worked, maybe, but it doesn't work. And that's the reality, right? Our nervous systems get all tied up based on the things that are going on outside of us and inside of us in any given moment. And so the nervous system work is an ongoing practice. And when I say nervous system work, I'm really talking about what you're saying in terms of starting to become familiar with and sitting with what's happening within you from a sensation perspective, physically, emotionally, energetically. And most importantly, because you're doing the practice, and I think this is what I heard you say, so let me know if I missed it. Through doing the practice, you build the confidence to be able to lean into those edges and know that you know when it's time to pull back.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's, people often forget. So you practice, right? This sports, for example,
Yeah.
your team practices in between games. So when you're under the pressure of performance in the game, in the outside world, you can show up. And it's the same with if you have a seated meditation practice or a yoga practice or a strength training practice or any of these things, the practicing coming back to the self or the practicing performing something, you're practicing so you can then do it outside of practice.
Yep.
And I think that often gets forgotten along with that practice doesn't mean you're nailing it all the time. That's why you're practicing. Right? Those are the two things we forget.
Yes, it doesn't mean you show up perfectly every single time. And when you don't, which you often won't, it's an opportunity to learn.
I don't know if I've ever shown up perfectly. Don't let anyone in my life hear me say that because I like to pretend I'm perfect.
I don't even know what that means. I love the term perfectly imperfect because that's probably as close as we're going to get, right?
Yeah, I agree with you.
Okay, so this idea of really leaning into strength as a way of practicing connecting with your internal world, which again includes emotionally, physically, energetically. Am I missing any level? Cognitively, even, right? Because our thoughts are somatic. They show up in our body somehow.
I agree. I don't see it as a mind body connection. It's a mind body, it's a one thing.
It is a one thing. I agree 100%. We can't pull them apart. It's just they don't work separately.
Yeah.
And so through that work, and what I imagine was an ability to create more capacity to feel the emotions, but also identify the pain points connected to your eating disorder. How did that then lead into you wanting to explore more about this in your writing?
It's not even a want. It's like it's a I don't mean it. This is, has a negative connotation. It's a compulsion. I think that's how a lot of people are with any sort of creative practice. They engage. It's a must. I always, when growing up, I wanted to be a writer. I also didn't think I could be a writer because I didn't do so well in English class, especially once I got to high school. I went to a pretty competitive private school, and I am a slow reader because of dyslexia. And what I didn't know at the time was like, that's a different type of practicing English, right? It's, let me get this book read so I can write the paper. Doesn't actually mean you can't be a writer. And I look back on it now in all my jobs, which I have had a variety of jobs, have all involved writing. But I did not think of myself as a writer, but I was always writing. I wrote blogs when no one was paying attention to them on Blogger. And it's just always been an avenue for me to figure my stuff out. Either I was writing poetry or terrible fiction or personal essays. It was all an exploration of my understanding of something. And then for me, there is definitely plenty of people who also probably wouldn't consider themselves writers, but they write every day, so they are writers. That is what they're doing. I then have this added thing of I want to be sharing it with people as a point of connection. Writing Lifting Heavy Things was a huge revelation to me about how powerful that could be for other people. I thought 100 people were going to buy this book. I was very wrong. It has been very successful. And all of these people, not all I know, but everybody, but a lot of people who have read it were able to feel seen, which is so important when you're doing trauma work. And I felt seen. It was a brave thing for me to do, but I was like, I know I feel like the only one. I know I feel isolated and alone and nobody gets it. But I can't be. It's just not how that works, right? Intellectually. And so I got real brave and was like, okay, what are my boundaries about what I'm going to share and not share? And then I am going to be like, hey, this is how I'm experiencing the world. Maybe you'll find it helpful. And other people are like, oh, I do find it helpful. And we saw each other. So healing for me, too. And so that's what's going on with this, and I've been just starting to peek my head out and be like, hey, this is what I've been writing about. This is what I've been doing. I did have to go and seclude myself away for a little while and just start to really work through it all on my own. But now I'm getting ready to be like, hey, I feel totally alone, but there's no way I am. Like that.
Part two.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. So that what was arising for me as you were talking is that there's a saying, and I don't know what it is exactly, but it's something along the lines of if you want to learn something, go out and teach it.
Yeah.
And it feels very similar. If you want to learn something, go out and write about it,
Yeah.
which makes like really resonates with me in terms of the way my brain and my system processes information, right? Because you're taking information in and you're transmuting it and you're putting it back out.
Exactly.
And there's this added piece, which I think is so important that you're talking about, which is, and through that, finding connection with other people.
Yeah.
And I think that's so powerful. And you're right, because this book, Lifting Heavy Things, I'm sure touched so many people and made sense to so many people, especially folks who are out there in the gyms, working out, working hard. And I see this a lot, which is part of what prompted me to even reach out to you to do a podcast in the work that I do as a therapist who works with relational trauma, chronic illness, chronic pain. That there are so many of my clients are, let's say, avid exercisers, some even running marathons, Ironman, things like that. And they have no mind body connection.
None. Because there's, especially once you actually get to that point, because you have to do so much override to, if your focus is winning.
Exactly, because it's about the outcome, not about the process of what happens when you bring that stress, as you were saying, bring that stress into your body and work to expand around it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think about that. The desire to have the trauma informed strength training grew out of an injury that happened after extreme overtraining as part of the trauma response. I was like determined to perform, to win, to turn myself into this invincible machine, but humans are not machines. And I broke. But I was really trying to make myself an invincible machine. And I was training 10 times a week in three aggressive sports. And I see a lot of people do that. And I think, and then well, like professional athletes do it, but that is literally all they do. And they also have an off season, right? They get paid millions of dollars in some cases to override, to play through injury. And then they also, at the after practice, they have athletic trainers and doctors and physical therapists and ice baths and hot things, and everything goes to keeping their body going. They don't have jobs. They don't have, maybe they have therapy, I don't know, but they get to focus their life on the sport and have an off season. But if you're doing CrossFit or if you're running marathons and you're also a teacher or a lawyer or a stay-at-home caregiver, you're not necessarily getting, you're most definitely, maybe a few people are not getting these other supports and the type of time to recover. And people think that they can just train through it and train through the pain and train through the stress, and it's no, you have to balance, you have to recover, you have to give the nervous system the chance to recover with sport and with feelings.
Absolutely. And there's this element of the training being used to perhaps escape the uncomfortable
Yes.
sensations that are happening as a result of something else.
Yes.
Because at least if you're out there lifting heavy weights or running 10 miles, if you don't have the mind body connection, if you're not doing it mindfully, there is a sense of control that you may not have in other areas of your life.
Yes. And I think it's a really important point that there is this idea of it's not necessarily the what you're doing, it's the how you're doing it. And there are times where I've met coaches who are like, oh, yeah, when somebody comes in and they're like, I'm so stressed, I'm so angry, I want to flip a tire. I'm like, let's flip tires. And I'm like, cool. My approach is like, oh, I'm so angry, I want to flip tires. I'm like, okay, maybe. But maybe can we flip the tire a little more slowly and see how it feels at first? Like, would you be open to that and slowing down the movement? And that's one of the really good things about weight training is you can either choose to slow down the movement without putting more weight on the bar. For some times, though, mentally, you're like, no, I really want to push myself. You slow down the movement by putting more weight on the bar.
Yes.
So there are ways to do it from the inside or from the outside, because when you slow it down and you practice staying with it, that's when the sensations come up and you have to notice them.
Exactly. And so so to that point, and taking the work that you're doing now with eating disorder, desire, and overlaying that on what we're talking about in terms of control
Yeah.
over the body versus a relationship with the body, which is really what we're talking about. Can you say a little bit more about that and what you've learned through your work?
Yeah, that's the huge one. That's the one of the main overarching themes in this book I'm working on. Whereas lifting heavy things would be like in the self-improvement section,
Mm.
essays and recipes and some other things that will probably be in the memoir section, which is a little different. One of the thematic arcs across the book is tracing the relationship to self, right? And my experience, and I do believe that this is the experience of a lot of individuals socialized as girls in our culture, is we are acculturated as we enter adolescence and we start thinking about ourselves in relationship to others outside of our parents to disconnect from parts of ourselves to make ourselves more appealing. And I think it really shows up in romantic relationships and certainly did for me. And I had gotten this very strong messaging, and not just like it's anyone did a thing, but simply from how I was living, what I was seeing around me, from the grown-ups, the older kids, movies, TVs, everything. For reference, I came of age in the 90s, for anybody's listening. And the path to safety was to be desired, right? And to be desired meant making yourself desirable, which meant sacrificing parts of yourself other people might find too much or unappealing in some way or another, and just putting that to the side, accommodating, making accommodating to be appealing. And then once you're desirable, someone who is desiring you will keep you and will keep you safe. And that did not work. Spoiler alert, it didn't work. And what the big thing with recovery and starting to just even, I was starting with the behavior, I was starting with the rules, I had so many rules about foods that I couldn't eat. And taking all the rules off, which in itself was like, talk about tumultuous, right? I had all those rules to feel a sense of control. I began to realize it was okay to wants to eat these things, to wants. Oh, it's okay to want. There's a part of me that wants other things. And that's when I started to connect with these parts of myself that I had pushed away in order to make myself this, what I thought would be this appealing trinket of a person. And I think being able to even know what I want comes from, in part, this practice of noticing myself, right? And then in honoring what I want, I am starting to rebuild my relationship with myself. I think, does that answer your question? I lost the question.
It does answer the question, and there's a lot in there. So when I was asking about the overlay of, or even not even the overlay, the thread, because the weightlifting and finding your relationship with your body through that opened up the space to be able to explore your eating disorder.
Yeah, weightlifting opened up a series of like gave me access to so many tools to be able to be in conversation with myself.
There you go. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's how you develop doing relational work with yourself.
Yeah. No, I love that. And what I really appreciate about that is that I can grasp it. A lot of times when we talk about a relationship to ourselves or finding a relationship to yourself or love yourself or self-compassion, we use those words, but what does that really mean? What does that really look like? How do we practice that? And for some people, Kristen Neff is a great resource, but it's really hard to sit and do some of those meditations or to treat myself as I would my best friend because I'm not my best friend, I'm me. And as much as I love my best friend and don't want them to die, my biological imperative is to keep me alive. And I'm going to do that even if it hurts me. So self-love goes out the window if self-love means that person who I feel is going to keep me safe is going to leave me. Therefore, I will push away the parts of myself that are undesirable, is what I'm hearing you say.
100%.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's so relatable. And when we think about that from the aspect of doing something that's more active versus passive, let's say weightlifting, as a way of knowing what you like and what you don't like, that's huge. And even as I say that out loud, I'm working with a somatic experiencing therapist, and she always starts with look around the room, see what feels good to you, right? So we always start there. And what do you like and what do you not like? And we always get into this conversation. How do I know? How do I know what I like that? But how do I know I like that?
You can, what does knowing feel like? Or
What is
what is it? What we could run through all the images and all that stuff, but what does knowing what you like feel like? And I think there's consistencies for people, different people. There is definitely, we all at least are consistent with our own vocabulary, our own body vocabulary, I guess we could call it. I know I can, when I feel my smile muscles, I'm like, oh, okay, that's a nice feeling, right? The chest lifts, the smile muscles. There's activity up here, and when I'm feeling really heavy in the chest, heavy in the lungs, I'm like, oh, we're feeling griefy. I am starting. I know my body's vocabulary.
yeah, and a lot of people don't.
Yeah, and I know it from practicing paying attention to my body and then doing the work in therapy as well.
Yeah, yeah, it's really incredibly powerful. So sorry, my brain just went, and sometimes my brain does this. I just got this image of for the strength training, the idea of also boundaries.
Big thing.
Yeah, can you say a little bit about that? And also how it relates to desire and eating disorder too? I feel like it's a continuum.
I will try to say a little about it because I can say a lot about it. So we know in trauma work, like reestablishing a sense of boundaries is like absolutely fundamental. That is very important early on in the work. And so in strength training, as a trainer, there was more interaction and there was constant affirmation of asking people, not saying we're going to squat today, but so I was thinking we're going to squat today. How do you feel about that? And then they go, oh, fine. And I'm like, no, like really, like notice when I say we're going to squat today. How does that feel? And then people might realize, oh no, I don't want to squat today. And then we have a conversation about it, right? So there was that practice with people who are practicing more on their own, asking yourself, okay, maybe you have a program and it's how am I feeling about this today? Oh, I really don't want to do it. Why don't I want to do it? And engaging in that conversation with the self. And all of the practicing we've been doing, feeling our edges and stuff is part of how we start to know what boundaries feel like. It drives me crazy when people are like, you need to know your boundaries and set them. And I'm like, lots of people have no idea to know what it feels like when they have, like, what their boundary feels like. And I do take people through a quick little exercise. Do you want me to try it right now?
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
okay. Quick
absolutely.
little exercise to practice feeling what, like, your boundary feels like. And so I start and like just we can do it together. You're just sitting, really notice yourself in the chair, feeling supported. And then bring to mind somebody you really love in your life, right? A family member, a child, a good friend, or whatever. And you see each other and they go in to give you a hug and really bring this like moment of they're about to go give you a hug to mind. What does it feel like? What does it look like? What does it smell like? What does your friend's face look like? And how are you feeling in your body when you bring that into your imagination right before the hug? And if it would feel nice to you, you can finish the hug. And then come back into your body again, reset. Notice where you are in the room. You can do that by looking around or listening to the sounds, feeling yourself, whatever sense grounds you the most in the present. And now bring to mind somebody neutral, not somebody bad, just somebody neutral in your life, like maybe like someone, but like somebody who you don't want to hug, like a barista, a coworker, and now they're coming in to give you a hug. Really bring that to imagination. What does that look like? What does that sound like, smell like? And notice how your body feels. Notice what you do. Notice the impulse. That is your body saying, no, I don't want a
Mhm.
hug from this person. And so you can just kind of come back and notice where you are. And I know for me, there's this, I kind of either hands up like this or sometimes like this, but it's hands up. Always, that's my instinct, right? That's my no. And you can feel your body going to do that, even if it hasn't done that. And that is a way to practice. We do actually know what it feels like. We just often don't slow down to notice it, what a no looks like. So when someone is presented with, I am presented with a question, I'm actually very quick to say no. I am queen of, would you like to try this thing? No. And that is actually almost never true. My thing is usually a yes. It's this like behavior, it's a pattern. And I know that about myself. Wait, no. Okay. I said no really fast. Let me just make sure. And I notice, I'm like, if I feel an opening like I do to getting a hug from a friend, I'm like, oh, actually, yes, I want to try that. And then sometimes I'm also very quick with my yes. And if I haven't stopped to think about it, I'm like, let me think about that. And sometimes it was actually a no, right? So just knowing that about yourself, I make a knee jerk response and then I always need to dial it back. Some people can slow it down, but that's just a really good body based way to know your no. And I think you can then, and coming up with that, it was like, oh, that's just because I'm practicing feeling what's going on in my body. It's the same thing. It's coming back to that same thing. And in terms of I think with the eating disorder recovery, and actually, it was more practicing, it was practicing that sort of discernment, right? It was neither a yes nor a no. It was the discernment. It was like, actually, you can eat all the foods. I had like really no food allergies. You can eat all of the foods. And I was like, and that was like what it was really a little bit scary. It was like practicing, and it took me a long time. It was not like right away. It wasn't like, oh yeah, intuitive eating, so easy. It was like, what is the yes? What do I want? And I gained a tremendous amount of weight. And I think a lot of people find that very scary. It's something I'm working with. But because it was like the equal and opposite response to so much restriction, and I didn't know. I had the thought, and I was like, oh, the thought is yes, eating until and getting close to binges and those sort of things. But eventually, it's sort of the novelty wore off, and I was like, okay, I really need to get to a place where it's not just impulse execution. It's, do I actually really want this?
Yeah.
Or am I just so excited because it's been years of no, you can't have this? And that again was this same practice of like, I have been practicing feeling what things feel like in my body. So what does the yes feel like? What does the no feel like? How much time do I need to give myself to figure out my yes and my no? And it turned out with food, I needed a lot of time, because I went to Weight Watchers for the first time when I was 10. And that is like a very many decades of, of practicing overriding intuitive style eating, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm just so struck by the road that you took to get where you are now. And again, like we said in the beginning, I imagine it's going to keep on going,
I
right?
hope so.
Yeah. Who knows what's next? And how each of these experiences that you leaned into build built on the prior one in order for you to build that relationship with your body so that you could slow down enough to ask that question and feel safe enough within your own body to ask that question and trust the answer.
Yeah.
And starting with something like weightlifting, where you are actually using something outside of your body, but also paying attention to what's inside of your body, for some people might be much more accessible than sitting down right away with food and trying to figure that out because those neural pathways haven't been generated yet.
Oh, 100%. I don't know how much of my life was like, what do you want for dinner? And I'd be like, I don't know. What do you want for dinner? And then the person would list. It's probably very annoying. I'd be like, no, no. But I couldn't. So that was like an in between place, right? I was like, okay, I'm starting to be like, if people list foods to me, I can feel my no, which was like the middle. That was, I know I know I have disordered eating, but I have it under control. And then it was like the next level. Now I'm like going on the boss level, I feel like, of, okay, what's actually the yes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the what do I want as opposed to what do I not want. What do I
Yeah.
want is so much more across the board, is so much more empowering than what do I don't want.
Yeah, it is. So sometimes it's easier, at least as a starting point, to feel into what you don't want
Sure.
versus what you do. And as I even say that out loud, I'm sure there's a lot that goes into that just in terms of women's empowerment and being able to actually have something that you want and request it or say it or express it. And how we, as a society and as a culture, women in particular's needs and wants have been put on the back burner. And it's interesting because I had an experience, I don't know, it was a while ago now, but it really stuck with me. And it was just one of these random moments. But what you're saying is really reminding me of it, where I was at a friend's house and they took out an apple or something. They're like, "Oh, do you want an apple?" And I said, "Sure." I did not fucking want an apple.
Right.
But my immediate response, along with what you're saying, was yes, because there's that people pleasing part of me, that part. It's polite when somebody offers you food, you take it. And then when they went to hand it to me, I felt that same thing that you took us through with the hug. Because in my body, what happens is I recoil. My shoulders come in, my middle goes back. I'm like folding in. And I felt that in that moment. They were coming towards me with this apple, and I was like, oh, no. And they looked at me like I had three heads, and they were like, I thought you said you wanted it. I said, I thought I did, but when you actually offered it to me, my body said no.
Yeah.
And it was just such a random, silly moment, but it really stuck with me because it was the first time, and I'd been doing my own somatic work. It was the first time I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
My body was really clear. No, we do not want that apple. Don't take it. Don't do it.
Yeah, no, and some of that, there are a million reasons for that. And a lot of it, I'm thinking about as you're talking about it, the pleasing, that's part of where we were talking about being acculturated to break relationship with the self. For a moment, you weren't in conversation with yourself. You were in conversation with the friend who was offering you the apple. And you're like, oh, yes, I would like to be accommodating to my friends so they don't feel like, oh, God, what does she want? Whatever. That would be my fear. I don't want to be too much in your kitchen, right? Like, so
Yeah,
well,
exactly.
I'll take the apple, but I don't want an apple. It's a little thing. At the end of the day, eating an apple you don't want, it's not the end of the world, but it is absolutely an example of we do tons of these little things, and you are like disconnecting from yourself in those moments. And sometimes when we disconnect from ourselves, it leads to much more painful things.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So, as we are starting to wind down here, Laura, is there anything that I haven't asked you that you would like to share with the audience?
Oh gosh, that question.
The question that puts you on the spot.
Don't think so. I think I just really want to say we were talking about the practice, and you have to keep coming back to the practice or keep choosing to come back to the practice, which was exactly the thing I was thinking. I mentioned I'm still strength training. I did strength train 3 times a week very regularly or more for 18 years at one point, and I was like, I'm really tired of this. I got bored, shocking. And I switched. I went away from it for a while. I took a break. I did nothing for a while. I did Pilates. I've gone back to strength training. And I think, why am I bringing this up? To say these practices, we started off by saying it's something you have to keep showing up to, like brushing your teeth, is working with your nervous system and working on being in conversation with yourself. And different modalities work for you at different times. And it's okay to change it around. It's also okay to to not do it for a while. Like I did ultimately sustain some injuries from not strength training for so long, and then I had to rehab and build back. And of course, there's a part of me that has a little like regret. But really, also, I think if I had kept showing up to that particular modality, not wanting to, in fact, that was what happened. That's right. I was exhausted and I was doing it anyway, and I hurt my back. And I was like, I really need to take a break from this. I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here in this practice. So, what's another way to get this in? And it took me through a couple different things. And I think we should always keep our minds open because also a lot of these things we're talking about are very physical practices. Our bodies change. We are not going to always be able to do the things that we can do today. We might be able to do other things in the future that we can't do right now, but like it keeps shifting. I've returned to yoga after a very long time. And you know what? I'm not nearly as limber as I used to be.
Surprise.
And now I'm there and it's, does anybody have anything we need to know about? And I'm like, yes, I have arthritis and a torn meniscus. And I didn't have arthritis and a torn meniscus when I was 30. But I have those things in part because I've been living my full, beautiful life, right? That's just part of it.
Absolutely. And I really love what you're saying, and that is that it's less about the medium that we're using and more about the process and the practice of staying connected and listening and being in relationship to our body as a way of helping us show up in the world with more capacity, with attention to what's important to us, so that we can stay aligned with our values and our passions and what makes life meaningful. And through that process, there's going to be bumps in the road, but the more that we are able to connect with our own inner world, the more capacity we have for those bumps in the road.
Yes.
Yeah, beautiful. Laura, if people want to follow you or get connected with you, get your book or be on some kind of wait list, yeah, are you like how can people connect with you?
My website is my name, laurakoudari.com. And so that's Khoudari. And I have a Substack as well. All my stuff on there is free. And it's my monthly newsletter, essentially, although sometimes it's monthly. I think it's going to be a little more frequently now, as I mentioned, coming out of my little hermit hole. And that's laurakoudari.substack.com. It's called The Desk and Stove. And I'd love for you to sign up for my newsletter because then you can stay abreast. The book is available wherever you want to get your book. It's likely, if you like to get your book in a brick and mortar store, I love that. Me too. You probably have to ask them to order it, but they can. And I always, if people are going to order online, I ask people to use bookshop.org if they can do it, because that will support local independent bookstores, which is very important to me. And if you don't want to buy it, you can see if it's in your library. And if it's not, you can ask your library to buy it, and they will. And then you can read it that way.
I love it. Thank you so much for being here today, Laura. I really enjoyed our conversation and learned so much.
Thank you for having me. It was really fun. And I learned some things about myself too.
I love it. Fabulous.